If I needed to add $7,000 to my business in the next 5 days, this is exactly what I would do. I'm going to talk you through this process in today's video. My name's Freddie. I quit the corporate rat race about 3 years ago and used this exact process to build my business after moving 4,000 miles around the world without an audience, without knowing anyone, and without any money to start with. We now use this exact process to bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So I want to take you through this because it's one of those things that can work short term, but be amazing long term. So you may as well get it in place to get it working over the next 5 days to bring this revenue in, and then think about it in the long term, because this is going to help you in so many ways. So effectively, we're going to work around the idea of borrowing trust. When I moved 4,000 miles from my home in the UK to start my business, I thought that I knew everything because I come from a corporate world where we were making billions of dollars. I had a team of 30, I was 25. You're privy to so much information that you're like, I can do anything. But when you start a business, or even a lot of people, when they've been running a business for a while, no one knows them. They've got no authority. They don't have that trust, which is why when ads get more expensive or stop working, they really grind to a halt. So what we want to do is work on the idea that I'm so passionate about, which is borrowing trust. And so we're going to use podcasts to borrow trust. It's the most effective way, especially in short term. We can send out, this is representing 50 pitches. You can easily send out 50 pitches to strategic niche podcasts. So I've put over here, niche strategy execution, which we'll come to in a minute. But right now I just want to talk you through the tactics. You know, we always think in philosophy, strategies, and tactics. Let's just talk about the tactics first. This is what you're really here for. You can easily write 50 pitches, or even one pitch that's slightly accustomed to a podcast. You get on a podcast with a highly leveraged host and audience who are already bought in. You borrow that trust. You haven't got to start posting on TikTok or posting on Instagram and build something from scratch. You can literally borrow the trust from these people that are already making money. They've already built an audience. And if you can get them to trust you, their audience will trust you. That's the first part of this. So in the next 5 days, we need to make 7K. So you're going to send out 50 pitches today. That's what we need to do. And when I say pitch, you need to find a niche or a niche podcast that's in your space. So if you're a fitness trainer, if you're a consultant, you need to make sure that you're finding podcasts that are in your niche and that are ideally close to you, because we want to get them in person. Online podcasts are absolutely fine, but if we want to get the highest leverage, obviously in person is going to be better. Because we only have 5 days, maybe you'd prefer just to go any high leverage podcast in the next 5 days. By that high leverage, I mean top 10%. So we need them to have at least 1,000 downloads per episode and an audience accessibility, i.e. they haven't got to have 10,000 followers, but an accessibility of 10,000 people. So their Instagram could have 500 followers, but if they get a reach of 30,000, that still counts. We know we can get in front of enough people. So to do that, you already know your niche, hopefully, if you're in business. You've already got your positioning, you already know who you are, you're already good at what you do, you're an expert in what you do. So the strategy would be finding those podcasts. So we're going to use things like Listen Notes and Raphonic. Go in there, find some podcasts that you trust. So if you're in the fitness space, like I said, you could find fitness podcasts, fine. But I'd also look at food podcasts. I'd always look at, if you work with women, could you find a podcast that's really popular with women? Or could you find a podcast about business where you know that entrepreneurs are going to be looking to get fitter at the same time? That's the kind of podcast you might want to go on. You've got your niche, your niche, you understand the strategy, then it's about execution. Execution means, what can I give that audience? So when you go on a podcast, firstly, you got to get on there. Secondly, you've got to understand your strategy and then execute. So when you get on there, what are you going to say? Why would anyone listen to you? You can't just speak about your story the whole time. You can't just talk about why you need to be fitter if you're a fitness coach, or why, if you're a sustainability consultant, you need to plant more trees. You can't just do that. No one wants to listen to that kind of stuff. You need to think of an angle that gives you credibility and can give the audience something. Because if we're going to hit this goal of 7K in the next 5 days, you're going to have to give them something on that podcast. So I've represented here, it could be a paper you give them, could be some sort of lead magnet, could be a challenge, could be your book, could be an audio book, could be a set of trainings, something that you can give them on that podcast in the description, where once they've started to like you, they're going to then try and find you online and download something from you. We want to get them to find us online. From there, we can do things like look at our welcome sequence. So when someone comes onto the lead magnet, the best opportunity you have is to trigger that download with immediate response. So what does a welcome sequence look like? How are you going to get them more bought in? If they've downloaded your nutrition guide or your sustainability podcast, whatever it might be, your best performing lead magnet, you need to get their welcome sequence working straight away. You need them to take action now. If they're downloading something, if they've opened it and clicked the link, they are on it now. They are hot, they're engaged. You need to talk to them immediately. Then we need to look at the email follow-up. So we've only got 5 days. So we need to be hot here. 1, 2 emails a day. Can you ring them? What can you do to make sure that the value here is linked to your next step of value? Because we want to make 7K. These lead magnets are going to be free. You might have a next step, which is $50, $200, $300 as a next step lead magnet. But if you want to get to the 7K, you're probably going to have to sell your high ticket offer, right? Or whatever it might be. You're probably going to need to sell something at 500, which is still low, up to whatever it's going to be. Maybe it's the full 5K, maybe it's 2.5K, maybe it's 3K, whatever it is. So the email follow-up is really key. And especially because it's short term, we're looking at 5 days, 2 emails a day, maximum touch points. Think of the Google 0 moments. We need to get them to interact with us a number of times on a number of platforms. So email is enough because you've got the ability to get into their inbox. They've already heard you on the podcast and they've got you here. And the lead magnet should always have like a book a call thing if that's how you sell your product. So you've got enough touch points there. I would also always recommend a massive bonus. So when someone downloads a lead magnet from you and there's stuff in the, they're reading your emails, give them a massive bonus. Give them something else. Get them on a free strategy call. Get them a quick win. Just because I keep mentioning, we've only got 5 days here. If this was me, what I'd be doing is getting on those podcasts, pitching podcast day 1. I would get one in the bank, go ugly early. You know, you've heard that saying from going to bars probably. Get on a podcast the same day. Maybe it's a smaller one, maybe it's an online one. Get on one the same day, get on one the next day, get on one the next day. Then you're going to have time to get these leads through the lead magnet, ideally book a call and just give massive value here, massive bonuses in the email. It could be that you invite them to a webinar or a masterclass where you genuinely solve that first problem and you give them an amazing guarantee on the next step and then they buy. A lot of this part will come down to how solid your offer is. But in order to make the 5K, you just need the attention, the borrowed trust, the attention, and the email sequence. That is exactly how you can make the 5K. Okay, so let's go back over to, in fact, let's stay here. As I mentioned, we've done the pitches. You will easily get onto, I would say 2 podcasts. You want to get onto 2 podcasts. In fact, the ideal here, we want to always aim for 2 hours of podcasting per month. So it might be a combination here. So you might be on 4 30-minute podcasts, you might be on 2 60-minute podcasts or 1 long podcast. I would only do the longer podcast if you know it's a highly regarded podcast. You know that time is going to access more leads or more people, more audience. Because otherwise, 4 times 30-minute podcast might get you more leads. Over a year, which is why I've said, 7K the next 5 days or 100K plus in months, because you can get to 100K a month just by doing this. You can go on 2 or 3, 4 podcasts a month. We normally say 2 hours. Break it down however you will. From there, what you're then able to do is share it onto your own socials. So we're thinking about filling that know, like, and trust. If we've got people in our email list already, our own email list now, not new leads from podcasts, our own email list, and you're able to share, to your socials, but also leveraging your own email list by talking about new things on these podcasts that you're going on. When you go on a podcast, don't speak about the same stuff again and again and again, because no one's going to click on that podcast. No one's going to click on that hook. No one's going to watch your reels if it's the same stuff again and again. So what we're going to do is we're going to borrow trust by talking about new things on new podcasts, sharing it to your socials, and sending it to your email list. You could send out an email to your newsletter or to your whole list saying, I've been on this amazing podcast and I've dropped real secrets about whatever it might be. The point there is that your methodology can have little sub-parts of your unique mechanism. So if I said I'm going to sell LinkedIn thought leadership, I can help you get 5 leads on LinkedIn in the next month. Okay, it's fine, I understand. If I say I've got a special unique system that not many people know about, and it utilizes and leverages the 1 billion people in the network of LinkedIn, it's far more exciting. You're leaning in more now. I can see you doing it than me just saying, I'll get you some leads on LinkedIn. No one wants the lead. We want the leads, but no one wants the tactic. They want the strategy and the philosophy. So think about that when you go on a podcast. What's the angle? When you're putting it out to your socials and your list, what have you spoken about that's new? How can you re-engage people? Because we've only got 5 days, but if you've got some content to put out there, which is unique, and you're already borrowing trust from another audience, you will easily mop up people that were just about to buy or maybe buy next month. They're going to come in right now. And you can keep that chain taut rather than let it be slack and people buy when they want. Cool. Okay. So we've got onto some podcasts. The longer term strategy is really relevant here, because if you had done this 6 months ago, we wouldn't be in the situation where you wanted to add 7K. And if you are in this situation, think about it longer term. Think about organic, slightly longer term than you currently are. Because you can still make the 7K, or you can make more than that in the next 5 days. But if you're a business where you're already making money and you're watching this just as a fun hook, this will add hundreds of thousands of dollars to your business long term, and it will drop the cost to acquire customers. It will increase your LTV, and it will stop you having to spend so much money on ads. So let's think about it. You're probably spending, if you're a business that's doing, $500,000, $1 million plus, you're spending $1,000 to $5,000 per month right now on SEO. If you're a small business and you're just trying to get off the ground, you're probably spending nothing on SEO, and this will still benefit you. What about if I said you can spend nothing with this strategy? Sounds too good to be true. Okay, let's break it down. This is literally one of the reasons that we were able to go from zero to hundreds of thousands of dollars in our business with no network and no money, because we leveraged all of this. And you only start to see after a while, maybe 6 months, wow, we already nailed SEO. We've already nailed our positioning. We've already got lead magnets and emails working, because you have to in the podcast game. So think about it. Any of these podcasts, the hosts are going to have a way to distribute that content. Articles, posts, videos, stories, blogs, YouTube, the audio. They might write a paper on it. They might do some reels. They might do a keynote and give some links out after. And they're going to talk about you at events. You're going to be one of their hosts, their best performing guests. Plus, they might even write a book and put you in there, and then have the transcripts and everything on there. And that's all going to then feed into AI. So AI is going to know your name more than other people. What that gives you is keywords. So your name's going to be a keyword. Hopefully, in every podcast, you speak about similar topics. So whilst you have different unique mechanisms in your methodology, your keywords will be the same. If you're in the fitness game, you're always going to talk about, fitness, nutrition, longevity. You're going to talk about the same things. So you've got the keywords. They're all going to link back across hundreds of pieces of content of just 1 or 2 podcasts. This is every month you're doing this. So think of the backlinks. The second one is prolific exposure, because there's just so much content going out there. Your name is going to be out there everywhere and for free, because they're going to post for you in all these places. Plus, you're going to reshare some of the better ones, right? You're going to reshare the blogs. You're going to reshare the reels and make your own YouTube videos or whatever it might be. So think about the prolific exposure you've got there. And this is one of the things that I just find hilarious, because in my last job in the corporate world, it was a multi-billion-dollar company. We're doing hundreds of millions, if not billions a year. Half a billion, unique sessions on websites every month. And when I started my business, I was like, oh, hang on, we need to do the same thing here. We need to tell stories, build up trust with the audience, and be prolific. And people weren't doing that. And so you think about this. You think about how you can borrow trust from other people, borrow great hosts' names. You sit with them and speak. You've got all of the benefits of their content. Share it to all of your socials. Your trust goes from a 5 out of 10 to a 7 or 8 out of 10, if not a 10 over time. So the exposure is unreal. Then I've already mentioned it, backlinks. So this is probably what most of your money, if you're paying for SEO, is going towards. If you don't do the SEO because you're a smaller business, effectively you are paying for backlinks. All that means is a link on someone else's website pointing back to your website or your landing page. That shows Google and all the search engines that you're trustworthy. People just buy them, but you don't need to, because websites where people are actually growing their businesses they have higher authority than sort of fake websites that you pay to put backlinks on. So for example, if you go on a podcast with Alex Hormozy or Diary of a CEO or Chris Williamson, they've all got websites for their podcasts, or like us, on our normal website for our business, we have a podcast page and you put on there your latest episodes or all your episodes. So that is a trusted website because all your business goes through there. It's now got a high authority backlink to you for free because you came on and spoke about stuff. So yes, we're looking at getting revenue in the next 5 days. A lot of this will help. But now as we go further down the benefit list, this one could benefit you in 6 to 9 months. I was speaking to a guy this morning who has dropped his cost per lead by 25% because of this. And he's spending $1 million a year on ads. That is significant. And you only have to go on 2 podcasts a month and borrow trust. As long as you're getting this part right. We don't want to go on crappy podcasts. We want to go on good ones. We want to borrow the right trust. Cool. Okay. So this part, I hope, makes a lot of sense. The SEO benefits of podcasting are unbelievable. So, okay, once we get onto podcasts, let's touch on this bit here. So we've already touched on, when we get on there, we haven't got long, right? Because we've got only next 5 days to do this. You need to get your unique mechanism right. So like I already mentioned, the LinkedIn part, that's a good example. Or, whatever it might be, whatever it is that you're doing, make sure that you've got your methodology, your vision, your values. You're able to explain why you're different. Because ideally we want to be selling a very similar thing to everyone else because we know it works, but we need to make it more exciting. That's the fundamental. We then want to talk, or we want to have in our back pocket, a few epiphanies. So I've just done a breakdown actually on this channel of Dan Henry, one of the best marketers in the world, because on his episode with us, he broke down so many epiphanies that you go away and tell people about what he said. I don't tell people about the hour-long podcast that I had with him. I tell people the one-liner that he said that sticks in my mind. So what epiphanies have you got? If you are a business consultant, you could speak for 10 minutes about your specific way of helping businesses cut their manufacturing costs. Or you could say, planting trees is bad for manufacturing companies. By the way, I'll set that up and say you have to be a sustainability consultant to say that. That makes more sense, right? So say I'm a sustainability consultant, I help businesses, cut manufacturing costs. My one-liner would be, planting trees is bad for business. That makes more sense. That's the thing that I'm going to take away and go and tell my partner or my friends. I heard this on a podcast today. If it was relevant to me, again, has to be niche strategy relevant. So think about epiphanies. That then links into sound bites. So once you've got the epiphany, which is effectively a hook, what sound bite can you put after that? Don't rabbit on. Don't speak for 20 minutes. Speak between 3 and 5 minutes and really get to your point, hammer your point. Think about your body language. If you're making a really deep point, try to get the soundbite to resonate with that. Think about the reel that someone could make out of it. They could put really dramatic music over the top of it. If you're telling a fun story about how you had an epiphany to change your life, maybe your body language should show that. And maybe you should think about the music that can go on top of that, or the reels, or the content, the written content that will come from that. Really try and tie this all together. Because if you've only got 5 days to make this 7K, people are going to have to resonate with us fast. They're going to have to believe that we're being honest and authentic, and they can take that trust that they have in the host and this podcast they're listening to and give some to us. Follow us. Always need to put some contrarian opinions in there as well. Don't sit there and sit on the fence. It's the most dangerous place to be, especially on podcasts as there's getting more and people have less time to just pick different podcasts. They just want to listen to one or two. You need to have some sort of opinion that gets you off the fence. So if you are in fitness, don't talk about, I'm not going to put beliefs in your mind, but don't talk about the same things everyone else says. I don't know, diets don't work or 10,000 steps. Make sure it's something that actually people can go, oh wow, that's completely different to what I thought. That's literally where the gold mine is. And then here, just put audience host podcast. Do your research. So do not jump on these shows and just expect that you're a good guest. I've interviewed more than 110 entrepreneurs 3 billion in net worth. I've also recorded shows with multi-millionaires, celebrities, and Olympians where I haven't put it out. And I've said to them, that episode's not going to go out to our audience because I have too much value in my audience. And that was a poor podcast because they didn't say anything of value. They spoke for too long. They didn't give anything. They just spoke about their story thinking that's interesting. That's not going to get anything for them or for us. So if we're getting on these podcasts, research the audience. Who are you listening to? You should have already done this because you've got on the show, right? But once you get to the show, you can go, okay, who exactly are these people? AI can help you with this. Who are these people? What are they looking for? What pain are they in? What bruises can I push that I can then solve in this episode for them? Give away as much as you can. Research the host. So if you're going to go on a show that's not one of the biggest ones in the world, which is super, super unlikely, you need to go on a top 10% show and work your way up, make sure you know exactly who they are. What are they into? What's their background? Because you can link that in the conversation the whole time, and the audience like that because you're borrowing the trust, remember? They don't trust you. They listen to this host week in, week out. That host brings guests on that they like. Don't think that you are there because you're special. Bond with that host, research that host, borrow their trust. Everyone gets that part wrong. People think because they're invited on podcasts that they are something special, and they're not. You're there because you can add value to the audience. So you need to build rapport with the host, research the host, add that value, and research the podcast. Who have they had on recently? How long have they been going? Where have they been based? What's the backstory? Ours, for example, I started the podcast at my dining room table, literally in our old apartment, $30 lapel mic and a friend. It now sits at the top 1% in the world for business and entrepreneurship, and I've interviewed more than $3 billion worth of guests, and I've traveled around the world doing it. So people that come on and know my backstory build a far quicker rapport and trust with me and my audience because they already know me. It's like I'm interviewing a friend. The ones who've never heard of me or the ones who've no idea where I've come from, how can they possibly build that rapport? They see it as just a conversation with friends, and it's not true. You need to build that rapport before you get there. Cool, so what we're gonna do with all of this is we're gonna start making this 7K from previous leads, right? So if we've got anyone in our funnel that might have bought next month, you're gonna put all this content, all this borrowed trust towards them, especially if they're middle of funnel or bottom of funnel. So top of funnel, it's not gonna work right now. That's what we're going on these podcasts. But the ones where we've got content to give, so they're already on our email nurture, they're already in our challenges, in our lead magnets, in our audience, put this to them. Show them new ways of thinking, put it to them. They could buy, they could make up part of this 7K. The other part we've got is the top of funnel. So borrowed trust will get us to our revenue goal so much faster than trying to go to cold traffic and building up a revenue quickly. So we're gonna go to the podcasts that we've got on. We're gonna show and execute our strategy really nicely, give them value, and then we're gonna close some of these top of funnel new leads who we've put in pain by pushing on their bruise and borrowing trust from the audience, the host, and then we're gonna solve that pain with whatever our product should be. And like I say, that will easily get you to $7,000 in the next 5 days. But once that starts to work, you can then see how that will add hundreds of thousands of dollars to your business over the year. People are sleeping on this. This is still fairly new. And this will be a trend for the next 10 years. Borrowed trust. That's how I would add $7,000 to my business in the next 5 days.